Let me ask you guys something. What do you think a Trojan horse is? Well, its original meaning stems from the story of the Trojan War in Greek mythology, where the Greeks built a giant wooden horse and left it outside the city of Troy as a gift. The Trojans then brought this giant wooden horse inside their city walls, but little did they know that within this wooden horse were Greek soldiers waiting for the opportunity to strike. So when night fell, the soldiers came out, opened the city gates to call in reinforcements, and the city fell. Now in modernity, the term is used a little differently, but the meaning still remains somewhat the same. In gaming or media, it describes a feature or trend that seems good on the surface but ends up harming the core experience. In cybersecurity, it describes malware disguised as legit software. In politics or business, it describes policies or ideas that hide a different agenda. And generally speaking, it describes anything that sneaks in problems under the guise of something positive. Now quite recently, I actually made a video going over the goonification of tactical shooters, mainly extraction shooters, but then I started thinking, where did it all begin? And what was the catalyst that brought in all this garbage? And then it dawned on me, who are most players gooning to? And I'm pretty sure someone's gonna make a dumb argument like, people would have gooned to male characters anyway. Yeah, that isn't happening. Unless number 1, they are weird as hell, number 2, they are women, or number 3, they are
gay as fuck.
Now I'm also sure that someone's probably gonna call me a sexist, like it's some sort of insult that should be taken seriously, but to that I ask you, is sexism bad? Now the dog at the back is probably shouting at the top of his lungs,
Yes! 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 Yes!
But before we shatter his hopes and dreams, what is sexism? Well, Merriam-Webster describes it as prejudice or discrimination based on sex. Now, that is a true definition. However, the framing is conveniently negative. Sexism is simply being treated differently because of your sex, whether that be positive or negative, which means sexism isn't inherently bad. Sure, there are positives and yes, there are negatives. This applies to almost anything, but the concept itself can't be bad. However, individuals making use of said concept could potentially be, or they could not be. Who's to say? For example, the act of being chivalrous involves men acting with honor and courtesy, often characterized by protective and polite gestures toward women, but more broadly, kindness towards others. Now the bit that stands out is protective and polite gestures toward women. Chivalrous men treat women differently simply because they are women. That right there is sexism. In fact, it's the perfect example of sexism benefiting women. But you'll never hear a single complaint about that because it just so happens that women like that type of sexism. Why? Because again, that treatment completely benefits them. So why did I bring up sexism? Well, the sexism women supposedly don't like is being excluded because of their sex, but more specifically, being excluded from settings they have no business being in. Like, come on, brother. Women don't fight in wars. There weren't female soldiers mixed in with the men that stormed the beaches of Normandy. Women are not at the front lines taking the fight to our enemy forces. That's not happening. And if it did happen, the side with female soldiers is losing that fight, and in record time, every single time. War is bloody. It is brutal. And if you saw images of soldiers pre and post World War II, you'd quickly realize that war is genuinely not a fun time. Now some will argue that tactical shooters are not true war reenactments, and they would be right in saying that. Most modern tactical shooters instead use fictional conflicts or alternate realities to create military scenarios that are inspired by historical events, rather than true historical recreations, with a focus on the gameplay loop instead of accurate war storytelling. Everything from time, danger, and logistics is effectively compressed to keep things playable to prevent it from feeling excessively drawn out. So in a sense, they are more like war-flavored sandboxes rather than actual war reenactments. However, they do simulate pieces of war, and where things get interesting is the mechanics. See, many tactical shooters try to recreate weapon handling, ballistics, team communication and coordination, limited resources, survival pressure, the psychological tension, and the slow pacing, which gives players a feeling of realism, sometimes referred to as the authenticity illusion, even though the broader context is fictionalized. And funny enough, a really good example of this authenticity illusion is a lot of the top content creators and streamers. But that aside, a better way to think about modern tactical shooters is that they are inspired by warfare while simulating combat mechanics that are designed as competitive or immersive experiences. So if the intent is for them to be immersive, how is a female character with cat ears on the front lines immersive? Make that make sense. Please, I would love to know. If it's for the sake of inclusivity, that's not enough of a reason to inject women into an environment they don't belong in. And I think this sort of thing also pushes this narrative that women are somehow just as capable as men in times of war, which is simply not true. Because I shit you not, I overheard someone saying this, and these were their words verbatim. Women should be allowed to fight in wars because I see it all the time in Call of Duty. Yes, that is exactly what this person said. Because they see it in Call of Duty, then surely it's a representation of reality, which is just completely asinine on every level imaginable. Like if you take a look at Call of Duty, for example, the golden age of COD featured none of this shit. It was clear cut, to the point, and you knew exactly what you're getting. Then Call of Duty Ghosts rolled around and introduced female characters in the multiplayer, and it's been downhill ever since. I also find it almost ironic that one of the worst Call of Duty games in the franchise's history introduced the Trojan Horse, that is female characters, in a military shooter. Because you guys have to remember, Call of Duty started its life as a World War II shooter, and it continued that trend until Call of Duty 4, when they made the transition into modern warfare. This grounded approach would persist throughout COD's golden age, but I genuinely think that Call of Duty Ghosts was the beginning of the end, and what we are seeing now with that franchise is the price they are paying for injecting something into a genre it doesn't belong in. So how does all of this tie into the goonification of modern tactical shooters? Well, players need something to goon to, and who better than attractive female characters wearing outfits that make no sense for the setting they are placed in? Because I can tell you one thing, men aren't gooning to other men unless they are
Gay as fuck.
And men make up a majority of the consumer base when it comes to game purchases and in-game purchases like skins and such. Sure, I'll admit there are women that buy games, but come on now, they're not the ones paying for it. It's their boyfriends or husbands who are paying for it. Now I'm sure there are women out there who pay for their own games and who don't have a boyfriend or husband doing the paying for them. Truly sad times, I know. But to that I say good luck, sucks to suck. I hope your cats are well fed and don't have to deal with your cuck. Anyway, that's the video. Now I understand. Yes, I do understand this is a very controversial topic for some reason. And no, I don't want women removed from gaming entirely. Just place them in settings that make sense. One of my issues with this type of shit is that these games are becoming less and less grounded as more people continue to accept this type of shit that makes no sense, all in the name of inclusivity. That is my issue. Now boys, I am telling you, I can see, hear and smell the misogyny allegations coming from a mile away, dude. I'm colored as fuck. We smell everything. My perception unreal. Because I know I'm gonna ruffle some feathers with this video. I 1000% know that. Did you really think I'd make this video without knowing that? Like, come on, dude. I know I can be slow sometimes, but holy shit. Anyway, I completely expect like some misogyny allegations, people calling me sexist and all that shit, even though everybody's sexist to a degree, whether they want to admit it or not. Like, let's just keep it a buck, dude. The people that are gonna offer some pushback, some of it will be valid criticism. I will give them that, but then trust and believe, dude. My kidneys are telling me there's gonna be a wave of some blue-haired towards paired in with some white knights here and there that's gonna push back on this shit. 1000%. I can completely see that being a thing. Like 100%. Like no joke, dude. If that doesn't happen, if I don't spot a bunch of blue-haired towards with their white knights pushing back on this shit, dude, I will genuinely be shocked. Like actually, I would wholeheartedly be shocked. But yeah, feel free to let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in my next video.